In a working-class suburb of Buenos Aires, the Impa aluminium factory shines like a beacon of hope across a sea of unemployment and despair. 5 years ago it went bankrupt and its 230 workers were turned out onto the street. But now nearly 200 of them are back inside, managing the company themselves, working as a cooperative, all receiving the same salary. They've improved productivity by switching to scrap metal as raw material, which has reduced their costs by 40%. But in the beginning they had to struggle to take control because creditors took legal action to sell off the company's assets and the courts sent in bailiffs and police to seize the machinery. The workers prevented them from getting inside. Guillermo Robledo said, "We blocked the way legally and sometimes not so legally, using physical force, even sometimes fighting with court officials in front of the authorities, the building, the machines, preventing any kind of auction. We didn't allow anything here to be auctioned off. That is, the court officials came with the police and we said, you're not coming in here because this is a source of work. Well, reluctantly, in the face of the drama of unemployment which Argentina's living through, that's how the judiciary became more flexible about its classic norms of foreclosure and forfeiture." Altogether, about 200 Argentine companies have reopened under employee management. They provide about 10,000 jobs, a considerable achievement in a country where more than a quarter of the workforce is unemployed after 5 years of recession. In most cases, the workers stepped into a vacuum. There were no rival commercial entrepreneurs waiting to buy the companies. If the workers hadn't taken control, nobody would have taken control. And they were strongly motivated to do so, since there's no possibility of finding other work. For Victor Paez, who works at Impa, and his wife Maria Elena Correa, the bankruptcy of the factory came as a devastating blow, both financially and psychologically. It also meant sacrifices for their teenage daughter. It was only after the factory reopened as a cooperative that they were able to begin rebuilding their lives. I felt a bit impotent when I was not bringing any money home and I saw that my wife was helping out. It worried me a lot. There were times when I felt really sorrowful. I was sorry that I couldn't bring money home, that I arrived and said, "Take this, it's all I've got, but leave me enough for my bus fare tomorrow."
We had to count our coins and save the money for the essentials that we needed. And there are a lot of things that we gave up, such as going on holiday, going to see the relatives in the provinces, because we mainly have family outside Buenos Aires. And we gave up a lot of trips. We were paying for our daughter to attend a private school, and we had to stop paying for that. She had to go somewhere else. We cut down on a lot of things.
Millions of other Argentines have not been lucky enough to get their jobs back, and crowds of protesters regularly block major highways around Buenos Aires, angry at the inability of politicians to manage the economy and at the corruption which has reduced a once prosperous country to third world levels of poverty. The decline accelerated rapidly during the 1990s, when the value of the Argentine currency, the peso, was fixed artificially high at 1 to the dollar. The result was a flood of cheap imports, leading to the collapse and closure of most of the country's own industry. Some left-wing politicians see the worker-controlled factories as seeds of wider change, not only as a way for some of these desperate people to get back their jobs, but also as a way of changing the entire way in which Argentina's economy and society are organized. Alberto Piccinini said, "I believe that this process, which has begun, demonstrates social changes which are taking place in society, and also that it's possible to achieve another type of economy and a different type of society. I don't know what it's going to be called, whether humanized capitalism as they call it, or socialism, but the intention is to build a better world." On the outskirts of Buenos Aires, a small number of workers are struggling to keep another factory alive. The 25th of May Workers' Cooperative makes iron fittings for the water supply and sewerage networks. This company fell victim to the other main plank of government economic policy during the 1990s, privatisation. Until then, thanks to the policy of the state-owned water company of using Argentine industry to supply all its needs, its owners and workers had prospered for 40 years. But after the water company was privatised, its new owners took advantage of the one-to-one foreign exchange rate to import most of their equipment. 3 years ago, when these workers returned from their Easter holiday, they found the factory closed. But after months of demonstrations, they were rescued by political allies who amended an old law to allow them to expropriate the empty factory and allowed the workers to reopen it. Faced with this change in the law, the courts had no alternative but to allow the workers to take over. Rubén Serafini said, "The majority of the lads in the cooperative movement are of the same way of thinking, that the members of the cooperative should be able to sit down in front of their children with dignity and not feel that they're living off state handouts, that although what they have is minimal, it comes from their own efforts for education, health and to be able to live with dignity." This chemicals factory was also saved for the workers through a combination of direct action, political pressure and a legal ruling. Until recently, the courts would usually have sold the bankrupt company's assets to pay creditors. It's not that Argentina's judges have undergone an ideological conversion, but the pressures on them have changed. In December 2001, there were riots against the economic crisis. Judges and politicians now calculate that if workers are struggling to manage cooperatives, they are less likely to try to revolt.
All these takeovers of factories by the workers, the recovery of factories in the face of widespread unemployment and desperation, the possibility that a factory might start production again where the workers have decided to take charge, this was supported by the city council, but decisively it was also supported by the public.
Unfortunately, such decisive action by government is unusual, and consequently the state's health and education systems have been in decay for decades. The social security system scarcely exists. In an attempt to fill part of this gap, part of the ethos of the new workers' cooperatives is to function not only as a place of production and employment, but also as a focus of mutual support among the workers and their families. Carlos Ortiz said, "What we give priority to, what we emphasize here, is solidarity. Based on the work you generate, you can take something out, and if you need a little more, all your comrades join in and help, for an illness, for whatever, to repair your house, to buy a plot of land, to overcome a problem. There are people here who were living in a shanty town. To get them out of that place, buy a plot of land, everybody takes part in building them a house, so that comrade's situation should improve."